And they would come, they would look at someone that we'd been struggling with for days. They'd know what they had, they could tell us exactly what to do, and then they'd leave, and they'd all sort of walk down the hall happy, really having done something magical. And it's like, I want that.
Welcome to the Licensed to Live show, where professionals, doctors, champions, VIPs, attorneys, and those in public office discover strategies that help you restart and gain what is lost when you find yourself accused. If another has doubted your integrity, questioned your credentials, or caused your actions to come under scrutiny, you are in the right place. On the other hand, if you have never felt the knot in the pit of your stomach when legal papers are served, the heartbreak of disappointing your family when the lock clicks shut on handcuffs, or had to appear before a board of review, then be aware, the longer you serve, the more likely you are to find yourself under the microscope of those who judge. Prepare yourself for this uncomfortable possibility. Now, here's your host, Dr. Jarret Patton.
Welcome to this episode of Licensed to Live. My name is Dr. Jarret, and I am your host for our journey together today and every day you choose to listen to this show. If you or anyone you know has been dissed by the healthcare system, please invite them to join us along this journey. Just go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe to Licensed to Live. While you are there, please rate this episode and give me honest feedback so I may make sure that I provide you with the most up-to-date information about career and life changes. When I say dissed, I mean disengaged, like, this medicine thing is not what it's cracked up to be. Dissatisfied, like, I just don't feel like I'm living up to my full potential. Disgruntled, like, being a doctor has taken too much of my life away. I am in debt up to my eyeballs, and I'm upset because my work life is too full and my real life is left barren. Or disenfranchised, like I was when I had my medical license temporarily suspended. What happens when you take your Moxie from coast to coast? Today we'll be speaking with Dr. Dina Strachan, a dermatologist, a speaker, a best-selling author, and founder of Aglow Dermatology. We will discuss Dr. Dina's journey into medicine, becoming a top doctor in her region, to getting dissed by the system, and the way that she built herself into a thriving market and one of the toughest markets in the world. Dr. Dina Strachan is an internationally recognized Harvard and Yale educated, board-certified dermatologist, best-selling author, speaker, blogger, and consultant who is the founder and director of Aglow Dermatology in New York City. She is a respected and popular expert in the local and national media and industry consultant on the topics of health, beauty, technology, marketing, and entrepreneurship. She holds a faculty appointment at the New York University. Dr. Strachan is the recipient of numerous awards, including being named a super doctor by the New York Times. Welcome, Dr. Dina. Welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Jarret.
I can't tell you how excited I was to have you here with us on this episode today because you have quite the story. I actually got a copy of Moxie Mindset and it blew me away. And as soon as I read it, I knew I had to get you on my show to talk a little bit about the book and talk about your story. So I'd like to know a little bit more about you and tell us what drew you into medicine.
Well, I am the daughter of a doctor. My mom, back in the 50s, was in medical school. She went into psychiatry. This was very unusual back then, not only to be a woman, a young woman doctor, but to be a young African-American woman doctor. So I actually always thought of it as an option to go into medicine. You know, it's like always something I could do. It wasn't necessarily the thing I wanted to do. You know, I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be an anthropologist. I thought about doing animal behavior biology, architect, all sorts of things. And, like a good West Indian girl, I felt a little pressure to do the doctor thing, but I did it what was very attractive about it was that there's so many options that you had when you went into medicine.
Absolutely. You did have lots of options. And I remember going through that same career choice as I was going through medical school myself. I'm like, now what do I do? So what drew you to dermatology?
Well, unlike what most people think that, someone goes into dermatology because they had bad acne as a teenager and the dermatologist cleared their face, that wasn't my story. When I was going into dermatology, there weren't all the cosmetic treatments that a lot of people get attracted to going into it for, as there are now. I actually was drawn into dermatology because of my interest in AIDS, the HIV epidemic. I was in medical school in the early 90s before there was the heart therapy. And when getting diagnosed with HIV was essentially a death sentence. And, as the skin is your largest immune organ, many of those patients, I was interested in that because of my interest in infectious disease and kind of activism and doing medicine that makes a difference for people. So as I was treating patients with that, we were calling a lot of dermatology consults. And that's because the skin is your largest immune organ. And so over 90% of those patients would have some type of skin problem. And I was impressed. I was at Yale and they have an excellent dermatology department. And they would come, they would look at someone that we'd been struggling with for days. They'd know what they had. They could tell us exactly what to do. And then they'd leave and they'd all sort of walk down the hall happy, really having done something magical. And it's like, I want that.
Well, and that's awesome. And that's the kind of the allure to any specialty that someone chooses. It's really that feeling. It's kind of that gut feeling. I want that. I want to be like that. And I'm going for it. So that's actually a great story, because I don't hear people often equate a dermatology career into the AIDS epidemic. So that's fascinating. So in your book, Moxie Mindset, Secrets of Building a Profitable Independent Physician's Practice in a Competitive Market, you mentioned that you once tried surfing. So I have to know a little bit about your time out on the West Coast while you were surfing.
So, as you know, I went into dermatology because of my interest in AIDS. And, one of the places where, that was a big problem and there was great care and great people to learn from was San Francisco. So I really wanted to go to the University of California, San Francisco, which is very competitive to get into, because of my academic interests, my career interests, but also, I wanted to learn to surf. I wanted to live that California lifestyle. So as soon as I matched, as soon as I knew I was moving out there, one of the first things I did was go out and find a place to surf, which I couldn't do in San Francisco, the city, even though it's on the water, because it's really rough. And you have to be an expert surfer, and it's cold. That's one of the things I was ignorant about. Northern California can be cold, particularly San Francisco, and that water is cold. So it's not the, in your bathing suit, surfing in the sun kind of thing. It's like in your wetsuit, trying to stay warm, dealing with some rough water. So I had to go down to Santa Cruz, where Ed O'Neill, who's a famous surfer, had a surf school. And the allure of that school was that they'd keep giving you lessons until you could catch a wave.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Well, sounds like success. I like that. And for any of us, including myself, that grew up in the East, the West Coast seems like a very foreign place. And I don't know, I always equated it to Los Angeles and what I would see on TV and in the movies, and realizing that San Francisco is way different than Los Angeles. It's different than Santa Cruz or San Diego. You just don't appreciate that until you get there. So I can relate to that water up in San Francisco that was just too cold to even bother surfing. So you had quite the esteemed career over that time, getting all of this top-notch education, going to the best residency programs, and ultimately going on to start your own practice. Was there any time in your career that you felt dissed by the healthcare system?
Unfortunately, yes. Yes, there were a couple times, but it's a story that, over the years I've just not wanted to talk about, but I think there's some great value in sharing it at this time on this forum.
Oh no, judgment.
And it was during my residency, which was a hard thing to go through for a variety of reasons. One, here I had gone to Harvard undergrad, Yale Medical School, and I got my first choice, top pick in an extremely competitive residency program in dermatology at UCSF. And I think the year I applied, and just to let you know, I'm a little older. So when I applied, dermatology was a late match. So we didn't hear whether or not we got into a program until October.
Ouch.
So fewer people applied. It helped eliminate some people because people weren't willing to take that risk, but you had to really want it because you could end up, there was no scramble. You couldn't scramble and get yourself a family practice spot or get something else. We were out there by ourselves. So, you had to be a little gangster to go and apply in derm back in 1994 when I did. And so, I did that. I got exactly what I wanted, UCSF. And so, I was feeling on top of the world, but, my experience there was not so golden. Wasn't so nice. I mean, it was pretty toxic. And, in fact, during my residency, I had to deal with a lawsuit that wasn't a patient lawsuit.
Oh no, not another test.
It was a very strange lawsuit that, without putting too much detail out there, that took place between colleagues in the department. And if I would describe all the details, it was really crazy. But a lot of it was the result of some of the problems my program director had with having Black people in this very competitive, coveted residency program. And it was his first time being a program director. And he had, when I look back now, that I'm older and I know more and I have some more insights about people and maturity, I think he probably had a little, issues with being on the spectrum. This is my opinion. This is my observation. And just social issues, perhaps not the best person to be in charge of the residents, and maybe hadn't resolved some of his own background and his comfort with dealing with diversity, which was ironically what that university was known for, being championing diversity at all levels. And so I felt like I spent my residency, a residency that everybody else wanted, being attacked by the person who actually inspired me to want to go there because he was doing what I was interested in doing. But he just didn't like the fact that there was this Black woman who had these great credentials. He just couldn't do it. It was just very awkward.
Wow. I can't imagine.
He didn't speak to any of the women in my program for the first 6 weeks. He said he would get up on stage and say he didn't know our names. Wow. At an academic presentation. I don't know the residents' names, because I didn't interview all of them, but he'd know the blonde man's name.
Wow. I can't imagine going through something so stressful in residency. I mean, you try to do everything you can to avoid lawsuits, and that's stress throughout your medical career, but yet you get involved in one during residency that had nothing to do with patient care.
Exactly. Like it was just kind of Kafka-esque crazy. And, it wasn't just me. It was like other people that, you would want to get their attention because you're doing something brilliant. And, you're working on an academic project together, and instead you're like getting to know, high ranking administrators in your university because of this crazy situation that they too are involved in, but they have their position. I'm just starting out. So, if a dean, gets sued by a crazy resident, that's something they went through, but they have their spot. I don't have my spot yet.
Wow. That's a lot of stress. So clearly you're able to handle adversity on all types of levels, because that's just a tremendous amount of stress. And that certainly qualifies as being dissed.
Final judgment. Licensed to live.
Absolutely. But they say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. You know how it goes.
That's absolutely right. That's one of my mantras for sure. So at some point after your residency, you really thought that you'd be able to create the freedom and lifestyle that you desired, and you ultimately decided to build it on your own. So tell me what that was like.
Well, one of the things that I'm kind of grateful for some of the toxic experiences I had in academia is that I think it saved me from spending my whole life there. I'm not saying that you can't have a happy experience and have an academic career. And, it's something that I had always wanted. But when I got up close to it, I saw a lot of unhappy. I saw a lot of competitive, toxic, crazy stuff like what happened during my residency. And I really didn't want to live like that. I felt like I'd worked hard to try to get something, that I wanted so that I could get skills and have abilities to help people and do things and create things. And I just didn't want to spend my time around all that kind of crazy energy. And I never wanted to have my own private practice, but it was starting to look like that was the only way I was going to be able to live happy and free and be able to focus my attentions on things that I had gone into medicine to focus my attentions on.
The comeback.
Very well put. I tell you, just having that gumption to do such a thing early in your career is amazing. And no less, you decided to do it in the middle of New York City.
Well, I just never thought of it as something that was supposed to be hard. It was like that thing. Yeah. That's like when I was a kid. Yeah, I guess, I can always just go be a doctor. You know what I mean? Like, my mom's a doctor, I guess I could go do that. You know what I mean? I guess if I don't like, working at, the hospital or working at the university, I can just, go start a practice. Lots of people in New York. I'll find a place.
You'll make it work.
I'll make it work.
And why not? You've been through worse.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I got from Moxie Mindset was you took some time to talk about coaching and how valuable coaching was in your career and as you developed your practice. Tell me a little bit about your coaching experiences.
Well, I got a business coach after I'd started my practice. I had read this man's book years before I even went into private practice. I was still working at an academic job, but I was working on myself. You know what I mean? I had that mindset of I am the CEO of me, even if, I'm just one of the faculty, at the hospital. And so I had read this book, and it was called Money is My Friend by Phil Lott. And I had to go to like 6 places to find a copy. So I figured it seemed like it was written in the 70s or before that, long ago. The guy must be dead, can barely find the book. And then a few years later, when I was in practice, I received an email from someone about how Phil Lott was speaking somewhere. And I was like, what? So I went to his seminar and I hired him. And it seemed like a lot of money for what I would think, talking to some guy on the phone and this idea of coaching. What is that anyway? But I think because I had read his book already and it just really touched me, it really dealt with the spiritual side of money. And his expertise back in the 70s was working with people who had transitioned from being employees to being self-employed, because it's a very different mindset. And I just decided to go for it. People thought I was crazy to give this man thousands of dollars to like talk to him on the phone once a week about my business. But I doubled my business after I'd had a baby and had reduced my hours.
Wow.
So, and he said it was all a mindset issue. My mindset then was like, oh my God, my life isn't going to work. My practice isn't going to work. You know, I was a single mom. I didn't want to be with the father of my child. I had this practice. I had this baby. I had these expenses. You know, because I had a baby, I had to get a nanny. But then that means I needed money for the nanny. But I wanted to work less. And he's like, that being a problem is only because of your mindset. And so I figured, hey, his mindset idea sounded better than mine. So I don't know if this is crazy, but I'm going to believe that I can work less and make more and spend time with my baby. And it worked.
What a great combination. I mean, that's what a lot of people looking for change in their career are looking for. They want to have more freedom, more time freedom, make a decent living, if not better than decent, and be happy with yourself. And you were able to achieve that all through going through the process of building your own practice, as well as investing in yourself with coaching. So that really sums it up. I mean, that's a very valuable investment that pays off time and time and time again. So you were really ultimately able to get that perfect job for yourself and have that perfect freedom while raising kids that most people always dream of.
Yeah, you know, and it continues. So after him, I've had other coaches, and as my business developed, you know, as my life changed, I've worked with many different types of coaches, some specializing in, say, marketing mindset coaches. I had a spiritual business coach whom I mentioned who's amazing. All of it.
Well, that's fantastic. And clearly by achieving those goals, I'll certify that you're licensed to live.
Credentials verified.
Oh, yay!
Dr. Dina, it's been so great to have you on the show today. I thank you for the time that you spent with us, and you've really enlightened us on so many different levels while overcoming adversity to really getting yourself into that perfect career that you love so much, and you've been able to do so much with all your blogging and speaking and authorship. It's amazing. So we truly are happy for you and my listeners. I'm telling you guys out there, Dr. Dina, you have to go look her up because she is really doing some great things. I mean, her practice is on a level unlike any other, particularly in New York City. So, Dr. Dina, is there anything else that you would like to add today?
Well, yes, if people would like to contact me, they can find me. My website is www.drdinamd.com, and that's DRDINAMD.com. And they can follow me on social media at Dr. Dina MD, and that's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And they can check out my practice, Aglow Dermatology, at www.aglowdermatology.com. And they can find that also on Facebook as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being a part of my show today.
It was my pleasure.
Dr. Dina knew that in order to achieve happiness in her career, she needed to do it by herself. She took some time to invest in herself, which helped develop and run a thriving dermatology practice with her Moxie Mindset. If you're interested in starting your own practice as you refresh and restart your career, I highly recommend reading Moxie Mindset secrets of building a profitable, independent physician's practice in a competitive market. Remember, fire starters, if you or anyone you know has been disengaged, dissatisfied, disgruntled, or disenfranchised with healthcare, please invite them to join us along this journey. Simply go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe to License to Live. And while you're there, please rate this episode and give your honest feedback so I make sure I provide you with the most up-to-date information about career challenges and life changes. Until next time, we'll see you guys then.
No matter how disheartening the moment of accusation sounds, how deep the pain of immobilization stabs, or how bleak your future looks, no one can take away your license to live. Keep Dr. Jarret's expertise handy and unlock your future. Go to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or another podcast player and subscribe right now to Licensed to Live.
That was awesome. That was great.